up, everybody? It's your man, Uncle B, the Brick City Monk, coming to you once again. And as always, I was having a conversation with a friend. Actually, it began with the conversation with my cousin. Let me start there. So I had a conversation with my cousin. If you are in a black family, you need to pull up, get comfortable, and listen to this conversation because it's a dynamic, specific, not specific to black people, but I'm sure you will understand what I'm talking about. So, and we have in my family, amongst my mother and her sisters and her siblings, we have people who have had children by, more than one person. And I don't think people anticipate what that is going to do or what the barriers are going to be when children come and the questions and things that children are going to bring to this dynamic that you have created when you parent children with more than one person. So I was talking to one of my cousins, and he has a sibling who is him and his sibling have they have one different parent, and this sibling has always had trouble with this. But the trouble isn't that the sibling isn't a trouble that the sibling created. So I'm going to say number one and number two for the purposes of this conversation. Number one was the one who I was having a conversation with. Number two was the one who was having the problems. And number two has had, over the course of our lives, several situations confronting the fact or surrounding the fact, stemming from the fact that he and number one have a different parent. What that has created, because they have a different parent, and it had nothing to do with the children, which is what's going to promulgate this conversation. Their mother, who is my aunt, if you can do this math, has created a situation where she has favored one over the other, literally one over number two, all their lives. We're talking about people who are in their 50s now. So we're talking about 50 plus years of your mother constantly pitting you against your brother, of your mother constantly creating situations where she's favoring one over the other, constantly. I don't even know if my aunt sees this. I don't know if it's something she's aware of. I have no idea. It ain't my thing to get into. But my cousin was saying that his brother is having a problem again, and it stems from this situation created because he has a different parent and yada, yada, yada. And now number two, who is the one who has the issue, has been married, I want to say, at least 3 times. Each time there was allegations. I wasn't there. Allegations of abuse within the relationship. He has at least 4 to 5 different children with a variety of people. Not necessarily the people he married either. It gets wild. So you have this dynamic created when he and his brother were growing up because they had different fathers, and their mother praised one over the other. And she still does this. I've witnessed her do this. Like, it's wild to watch her do this in real time. And I'll give you a for instance too. My number two, his third wife's father died. So we're at the funeral. I'm there with number one. He brought me to the funeral, to number two's father-in-law's funeral. Their mother, now unbeknownst to me, number two's wife had family members who were in a certain type of work. And number one is in that type of work. So when number one walks in, mind you, we're at number two's father-in-law's funeral, the mother starts praising number one and introducing him to all the people that he should know who do the same type of work. This is at the other son is right there. And this is his father-in-law's funeral. But this is what the mother does. It said, oh, y'all know the other one. She literally did that with the wave of the hand. Oh, y'all know that one. And kept on going on with this one. So again, number two, variety of marriages, all over the place, variety of kids by a variety of different women, and still having problems with his mama. Now, this is something I understand all too well as a young black man, I'm going to say, because I have my own experiences with my mother. Currently, my mother isn't even speaking to me right now, and I have no idea why. It would be wonderful if she would call her son and tell me exactly what it is that I did to make her not use her voice with me at all. But it's her life. If this is what she needs, listen, more power to you. But I don't think my mother, her sisters, any women, particularly from that generation, but I see it in my generation and I see it even in today. Young black women do not understand the dynamic that they create when they are raising their sons. You don't know that you are creating the abusers in the neighborhood. All the people that you fear in life, who are mostly men, most of that is created by some mother, oftentimes. Usually parents, but if it's a man, it's oftentimes the mother. And we don't look at that oftentimes because we see the mother as the caregiver, we see the mother as the caretaker, we see the mother as the nurturer. We see all of that, yes we do, but we do not see the mother who is stressed. We do not see the mother who is heavily burdened. We do not see the mother who is poor. We do not see the mother who has no place for her kids to sleep. We do not see the mother who is stressed out by some man. We do not see all that in conjunction with what we are looking at. So what happens is you get this mother who now has this child. We're going to use man child for the purposes of this conversation because that's what we're talking about, young black boys particularly. You now have this young man child in the care of his mother, and she is dealing with some man. So she begins to take out the things from the man on the boy because to her, they're the same thing. I don't want you to be like that, so I'm going to treat you like this so that you don't do that. When this child has no idea what it is you're talking about, no context or anything, but you're already trying to teach him a lesson that he doesn't need to learn. You're already trying to teach him a lesson that he doesn't need to learn. There was nothing to say that it was going to be in his character to be the exact type of man that you picked, but you have decided to try to get that out of him before it goes in. And what you have done, you don't realize, is planted that seed. That's what you've done. You've made him curious about that aspect of life now. You may have even given him a desire to use and wield the type of power that you have. Yeah. You didn't see that coming, did you? You know, we as human beings, we don't often understand that in our communication, we're communicating one thing, but we don't get to say how the other person is going to filter that communication. That communication is filtered through all of their hurts, all of their fears, all of their doubts, all of their beliefs, all of the things that they were told that they could do, all the things that they were told that they couldn't do, all the things they were told they would be, all the things that they were told that they are. It's filtered through all of that because remember, when you get here, there's a whole list of things that somebody slaps on you the moment you're here. All of a sudden, you are a Catholic or you are a Baptist or you are a Muslim or you are a Methodist or you are a Christian. All of a sudden, you are black. All of a sudden, you are Latino. All of a sudden, you are male or female when you were spiritual just a few moments ago before you got to this situation. So now you have all these labels to live up to. And now you're slapped into this situation with this woman who is not prepared to be a mother. It's not that these are bad mothers. They're not prepared. Who's preparing them? Their mothers were ill prepared. Their fathers were ill prepared. Most of their grandparents were ill prepared because we have an obsession in our community with proliferation. Everybody, you got to give me some grandbabies. Bullshit. Why? What does that do? We're talking, that's just numbers. That's just numbers of people. Do you understand that? You're only talking numbers. Keep giving me grandbabies. Give me grandbabies. You're not saying make those grandbabies good people. Make sure that they have a good sense of self. Make sure that they understand how to be productive members of society. Make sure that they are not abusers. Make sure that they are a benefit to their community. You're not saying that. You're saying, give me grandbabies, which is why so many grandmothers end up raising grandchildren. The mothers aren't ready. And they have been pushed into a situation thinking they have to do something that they shouldn't have to do. We have an obsession with proliferation in our in our community. And I get it. At the rate that they kill us, I get it. I get it. I get the fear. I get it. I do. I'm not ignorant of the fact that they kill us at such a rate that we need to replenish our numbers. I'm not ignorant of that. What I am saying is quality over quantity. That is what I am saying. I'm saying there is no rush to have babies. There is no shortage of babies that are already here that need care. They need someone to love them. They need someone to guide them. They need someone to parent them. They're already here. There's a bunch of them already here. You don't have to go out and make more. Then we wonder why how does it happen that so many kids are sold into child sex slavery? What do you mean? Nobody goes and get those kids. Let's keep having more kids. Just keep having more kids. Just keep having more kids. There are already kids here. There are already babies here that need that. And we're not doing a good job by them. We have to take a holistic look at things. I don't want to blame. What I want to do is shine a light in an area so that we can look at it and examine it and find out how we can make it better. It's not about blame, because what I've come to understand is everybody who victimizes somebody was a victim of somebody. Hurt people hurt people. Holistic, happy, healthy adults do not go around causing harm and injury to motherfuckers. People who are in their bag do not go around causing injury to motherfuckers. People who understand life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and what that really is, are not in nobody else's business. We have to learn these lessons. I don't understand how it is. I do understand how it is. I can't say that I don't understand. It is our programming, and we have to snap out of our programming. We have to begin to push against those boundaries that we think are there, because there's no real boundary. It is a mental thing that somebody has taught you that is a boundary. And we have to move beyond that. Getting back to the victimization, yes, young black boys are being brought up in households predominantly headed by black women. So if there is abuse, we can usually find the abuser, but we don't look to the types of abuse that are often, most people, they go straight to sexual abuse. Let's put it on the table. There's more than one type of abuse. There is food neglect. There is housing insufficiency. There are a whole bunch of different ways that you can abuse a child. There's emotional. There's mental abuse. You can have a parent who provides every single thing that a child needs and never touches that child and hugs them and tell them that they love them. The kid goes to bed every night never knowing what their parents feel. There's some parents who don't use words like "I love you." There's some parents who don't do things like hug their kids. They provide for them. They give them a roof over their head. They have clothes on their backs and their bellies are full. That's still neglect. We don't understand how this thing works. When you understand how this thing works, you understand the things that it needs in order to become a productive thing, in order to become the beautiful thing that it can become, instead of a sick thing, instead of a medicated thing, instead of a thing that is in constant need of medical care and surgery and all these other. We have to do better. A lot of our illness comes from the fact that we just put ourselves in such bad situations that our bodies attack us. What do you think an autoimmune disease is? Automatically. Immune, it's you, that's yours. It's your immune system attacking you. Automatically. Usually, there's a whole bunch of different studies that you can look at, but I would like you to just pay more attention to the fact that it could be the chemicals that you are secreting because you do not have emotional regulation going on in your life. So there are chemicals flowing through your body that you're not even aware of that are causing disease because they're not supposed to be in your body that often. Put a woman who doesn't have that type of emotional regulation, and now she's raising sons. And one of the things, and I grew up with this, and this isn't, again, to castigate blame on anybody, but I did not understand where beating your kids came from historically. And when I learned, I felt so ashamed. Not that it had happened to me, but that I had done it too. In helping my siblings raise their kids, I was spanking my nieces and nephews, and I wrote each of them a letter to apologize. I did not understand where it came from. And now that I understand, I have to apologize. I have to make that right. To the best of my ability, there's no taking it back. But there's something, you have to acknowledge the wrong. How do we not do it again if we don't acknowledge where it came from? We don't understand the historical significance of beating children. Slavery was where we got that notion. It wasn't something that we brought over here. It wasn't something that that was part of our culture. We knew other ways to teach kids. That is slave master behavior. And something else that I learned, they had to put a law in the books in the South where if a white person killed a black person, in the course of what they called correcting them, it was considered legal. If in the course of correcting them by beating them, I'm saying, let me be clear, and they died, it was not murder, for one, because they were property, but two, because you were white, and three, because you were trying to correct them. And we have adopted that behavior. And we think strong black mothers need to beat their children, and that is the thing to do. We think that is the sign of good parenting. We applaud it on the internet when we see it. We share the videos, we like it, and we comment, that's good parenting. That's what my parents did to me. Well, everything that your parents did to you should not be done again. The world that you and I grew up in is no longer here. So why should we keep doing the things from our childhood? Just ask yourself that question. The world you grew up in doesn't exist. The store that was on the corner when you were a child is no longer there anymore. The school you went to may not even be there anymore. Why should you carry these ideals? We as a country do that, though. And that, I think, is a European ideology to not grow with the culture and with the times, to hold on to documents for 200 years and say, this is how we must do things. That's weird. Times change. The needs of people change. The ideas that people hold dear change. And one of the reasons we can't change our ideas is because we won't change our ideas. You keep taking the same ideas and regurgitating them over and over again, trying to hold on to some semblance of slavery. Let me just interject this little piece right here. This is like a sidebar. Sidebar. This woman on the internet, her name is Kwani, the anti-influencer, I believe is her name. You can find her on TikTok, I think, and Instagram. And she was talking about this concept, and it floored me the other day. And I was laughing, but at the same time, I could see the merit in her argument. She was talking about why white people love dogs so much, particularly over black people. And I was like, all right, so where is she going to go with this? And she said one of the reasons is because it still gives them a sense of ownership over something that's always going to be loyal and loving to them no matter what they do to it. I said, bitch. I'm sitting here trying to find fault in this argument, and I haven't. I'm not saying some of y'all don't love y'all dogs because y'all dogs are lovable and they're family, members like everybody else. What I'm saying is your DNA has some say in some of your actions, whether consciously or unconsciously. And the fact that you feel the need to own something so much gives me pause. Why do you need to have power over another life so much? Why do you need to have it at your beck and call so much? And black parents have done that same thing too. I'll never forget. Something I never understood as a child was my one of my parents being in a room, and they called me into the room just to do something like turn. Well, everything is remote now, but when we were younger, we actually had to go up to the TV and touch it, and there were knobs and different devices, buttons, some of them, where we had to turn the channel on the TV, but we actually had to physically get up out of our seat, walk across the room, and go over, touch the television in order to change the channel. And our parents would call us from another room to come and do that. We could be upstairs, downstairs, outside in the yard with our friends. If we were within the sound of their voice and they didn't feel like getting up, they were going to call us and we were supposed to come.
Yep. Go turn that TV.
And you get there and you think they want something important, and they go, turn that TV. Turn Channel 7 for me. And you standing there waiting for the next day, and they go, all right, you can go back outside. Where do you think that comes from? There's a lot of stuff that we have forgotten that was done to us, but our DNA doesn't forget. That's why you get uncomfortable when you're around them, because your DNA hasn't forgotten what they did. Remember Nat Turner? I'm not talking about the revolt. I'm talking about the fact that they ate him afterward. You know why there aren't a whole bunch of mummies left? Because white people ate them. When they started finding mummies, they would eat them. After they hung people, oftentimes one of the reasons they set them on fire, it was the barbecue. You were cooking the flesh because you were going to eat part of that nigga. Pick a nick. Pick a nigga. Yeah, he was served up afterwards. He or she, they were served up afterwards. And people ate them. Us. They ate us. They thought if they ingested us, that they would, I guess, get some of... But we forget that. We forget that that's what's in their DNA. We forget that. And we forget that they passed on these behaviors to us. And that is how they still control us from afar. We haven't rid ourselves of them from our culture. We spend so much time ingesting their culture constantly. Christmas and Easter and Labor Day and Columbus Day and Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday. All these motherfuckers who didn't give a fuck about us. Some of them own slaves and shit. Y'all don't give a fuck about that. You know what kills me is no matter how much information you put on the internet about the fact that white people, a specific type of white people, power-hungry men mostly, are the reason that this country is the way it is. Nobody wants to say that out loud. Nobody wants to have that, because like it's a back and forth. History, I don't have to argue with you. I don't have to argue with anything. All we have to do is go research. That's all we're going to do. That's all we have to do is just go research. And we'll find out who the culprits are. Or we found out already. But the thing that we don't understand, I think, as people of color, particularly when we try to bring these types of messages, is that we don't control communication. No matter how many videos I post on YouTube, there is some method they have of screening the information that I have said, and it will be throttled and relegated to a certain portion of the internet. And it won't go any further than that. We don't own communication sources. We keep thinking we need to build towns and commerce and all the rest of these. We don't need to do any of that until we can communicate without them listening. What is the sense of trying to build all that when you telling them exactly what you're doing? History has shown us exactly what they'll do. So we haven't figured out two things: communication and security. Because before you talk about building anything, a city, a town, a culture, anything, you need to talk about security, because these motherfuckers. I was on social media the other day, and they were black farmers. I forget where they were, in which part of the United States of America, who were talking about the fact that the white farmers around them were harassing them. Mm-hmm. It was probably on a TikTok video. If you search it on TikTok, you can probably find a video that talks about it. But yeah, and it wasn't just one. There was one in Texas, I remember, and I think the other one might have been in like Colorado or Ohio or something like that. I think it was Ohio. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I think it was Ohio. Yeah, the white farmers are harassing the black farmers. Why? What? Because you can't own us. It's the bottom line, and we need to start saying that out loud. It's just because you want to own us. You mad that you can't own us outright. You mad that you can't tell us what to do all the time and we obey you. That's what you want. It's a power trip. It's weird. It boils down to that. That is what makes white women. I was watching it. I got to stay on social media. There was a white woman who had to be 148, I'm going to say, at her youngest, who was knocking on this black man's door, talking about his lights were disturbing her in her bedroom. And wherever the lights were, they were like maybe like string lights or something. They were like strung low, like maybe along his fence, and her bedroom was like on the second floor. And she had already called the cops. The cops had come out and told her, there's no light shining in your bedroom, lady. And she still got up out her bed and came to this black man's door in the middle of the night and said, could you please set off the lights? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a bad neighbor. You know what he said to her? He said, I know you lonely. And if you, in the middle of the night, feel alone, come on over here and knock on my door. If I'm not doing that, you're more than welcome. Go sit on the back porch, throw something on the grill. He said, because there's no other reason for you to keep knocking. My lights aren't shining in your window. He showed her a lot more compassion than I would have had. That's just me. I'm not trying to. Because I don't understand that. I don't understand why you need to infringe on what it is we're doing so much. But that behavior has been passed on. And I don't think black mothers realize how much of that they have ingested. And then they have created the beasts that terrorize our communities. And then wonder why there are these beasts in the community. You know why? Because like white women, there's this thing. Like white women are not sitting at the table telling their fathers and their uncles and their brothers and their cousins, you can't be around me and my family because you're racist. They're not doing that. That would be too much like right. Because white women see their power in proximity to white men. So it's few and far between. Like, of course you have liberals, yada, yada, yada. There's always exceptions, yada. But I'm saying the ones who, the Trump supporting left or right wing, I forget which wing, it's the same fucking bird. Whoever they are, they're not sitting there doing that. Equally, black women are not taking responsibility sometimes when it comes to their sons and the monsters that they have created and set loose into the community. Oh, my son was good. No, your son wasn't. Your son was a gangbanger. You know he sold drugs. You saw a gun on him. You saw the people he hung with. Fuck that. You're his mother. You see, you smell it. You know when there's a difference in your motherfucking son. And you know when he can't look you in your eye that he's doing something that he shouldn't be doing. And you know that part of that blame is with you. We can blame the absent father. We could. We can't blame somebody for cultivating something in a child so much who's not there. For the parents who are custodial. And I'm a because I like fairness, I'm gonna have to do something on black men to make this balance out in my spirit. But uh yeah, I think we need to take a look at the fact that I don't think black mothers often I was reading this, it was a study done, and it was from a periodical called Dame, Dame, and the it talked about all these young black men that they had spoken to, and the experiences that they had with their mothers, and their mothers who use corporal punishment, as some people use it, or who beat them, or whoopings, whatever term you use, um, and the resentment that these men had. They were hurt. And we're talking about how they felt. They were asked how they felt as a kid. And, some of them said, I was confused. Like, you're telling me don't hit women, but you are here beating my ass. You're telling me not to fight in school, but you are in here with an extension cord, with a belt, with a shoe, with all these objects that can cause real physical harm. But you're, in the same breath, telling them not to do what you're doing to them. You've taken away your son's power first of all, you've probably emasculated him in some way. But beyond that, you have now given him a behavior to take out into the community. How do you think he's going to treat not just his children, the mother of his children? See, we forget that seed germinates. Everything you plant germinates. So if you have sown seeds of disrespect with your mouth, calling your son all types of motherfuckers and bitches and and this, that, and the third, calling him all out his name, any of your children, let's go there, any of your children, you're calling them that, and then you're putting your hands on them or using some object to beat them like they're an animal. And then you want respect, because now you taught them that that's where respect comes from. Respect comes from hitting you. So if the woman that your son is now in a relationship with isn't doing what it is that he thinks he should be doing, what the fuck do you think he's going to do? I remember there was this commercial when we were kids. I don't know if you remember this commercial. And it was this parent, these parents, it was a couple, and their kid did something. I think they found them smoking marijuana or something. And they asked, where did you get that from? And the kid turns and says, I learned it by watching you, okay? I learned it by watching you. Yo, that used to kill us. That. We used to go to school and just repeat that shit. That. Yeah, but yeah. They learn it by watching you. Kid the other day brought it wasn't Casamigos. Was it Casamigos? I want to say 5 years old or something like that. Some little early learning, brought liquor, let's just say that, into the school and was passing it out to the other kids. I learned it by watching you, okay? I learned it by watching you. I'm glad you just said that. Thank you. I don't know if y'all heard that other thing, but do as I say, not as I do. And that was something that I heard growing up. Not often, but I did hear it growing up. That never works. I don't know if you're a parent, and you're watching this and you've already tested this theory with your kids, they're not going to do whatever it is you say. They're going to do what you did. I saw my mother light cigarettes when I was young. I wanted to play with fire. I used to burn. We had. This is such an embarrassing story. We had roaches, and I would burn the antennas on the roaches. 5, 6 years old. Yeah. By 13, I think I set the carpet on fire. Yeah. I don't know why fire fascinated me, but people were always smoking shit around me. My grandfather smoked Pall Mall filterless cigarettes from the time I could remember. He always smoked them my entire life. He quit maybe 6 years before he passed. Just quit one day. I don't know how he did that. That was the strongest thing I had ever. He just didn't smoke again. But yeah, my mother smoked, my father smoked, my stepmother smoked, all of my uncles and aunts smoked. Everybody smoked. By the time I was 8 years old, my older brothers and sisters had started smoking. And I remember being so, I didn't know what to do as a kid because my brothers and sisters are smoking. Oh my God, I gotta stop them. I'm like 9 or some shit like that, right? So I had money in my pocket. I think my dad might have given me some money, and cigarettes were cheap then. So I went to the store and I got me a box of Newports. And I said, if y'all don't stop smoking, I'm gonna start. And they looked at each other because they knew something that I didn't know. They looked at each other and said, oh, okay. And they waited. So I took out my cigarette out my pack, put my pack back in my pocket, and I put the cigarette in my mouth and I lit it, and I coughed and coughed and I couldn't breathe for the next 2 blocks home. I gave them the pack to say, hey, you can have them. Listen, take them. I couldn't. Not then anyway. I got better later. But yeah, when I was like 9, I was not ready. I was not ready. But I wouldn't have known to smoke a cigarette. And I smoke now. Now, honestly and truly, the exact reason I started smoking, I'll never forget. I was in college, and I went to school in Alabama, which was like 952 miles away from my home. And I didn't know anybody in the state. There was one person I had met from Alabama, and that was the recruiter who got me to come to the school. And she was recruiting everywhere. She wasn't like a friend or nothing like that. So I didn't really know her. Like, that was the only person who I was familiar with. And I got there my first semester, and I'm trying to adjust to out. First of all, I'm a northern boy. Southern life does not suit me very much. It's too slow. I don't. It's not my zhuzh. So I got frustrated. And I didn't know how to deal with my frustration. I remember as a kid asking my mother why she smoked. She said to relieve stress. So I thought, I was 18. I need to relieve my stress. Let me go get me a pack of cigarettes. And I remembered the story I just told you. I had coughed my head off 10 years earlier, and I knew that was going to happen. So I was like, all right, well, you got to get the juice. You're going to have to sit down and you're going to have to tough it out. And that's what I did. I sat literally out on the quad at my school with my cigarettes, and I had my juice, and I took a little puff, and I took a swig, and I just, because I didn't know what else to do to relieve stress. When I asked my mother why she smoked, she said to relieve stress. So I thought this was going to relieve my stress. What else would I know as a kid? See, it's something I was going, well, you're 18, you should have known. I was 18 and had never lived really outside of my family. I was always with my family. That was all I knew. I didn't have friends' houses that I spent the night over. That wasn't the thing when I was little. I had cousins, and we spent the night over my cousin's house. That was as far as it went. So family was the extent of my experience. So it was like, if my family did it, let me go ahead and try. But I say all that to say that I don't think that we take a close enough look. I think we need to be more mindful. I think we need to intervene more. And I think we need to stop pushing the proliferation agenda. Your daughter does not need to have a baby so that you can have a grandchild to play with. Your daughter needs to have a good life. She needs to do what it is that her heart desires. And I think that is more the reason, too, why women oftentimes get things like the autoimmune diseases and lupus and things like that more so than men. The worry. The amount of worry that goes along with parenthood in general, when you don't have to become a parent so early. I have one of my cousins, and I love her. She's my role model. She's younger than me by like 8 years, something like that. And she had her first child at 42. She had her master's degree. She owned her home. She had been in her career for more than 20 years. That's a whole different environment to bring a child up in than having to go to the WIC office, having to go to the welfare office, having to go to the clinic. It's a different environment. It's a different life. It's a different life. It's a different experience. It gives your child a different outlook on life. What's possible. Because we forget that these beliefs are grounded into children real early. Beliefs about what is possible, who I can become, all those types of things, formidable years, 7 to 14. 7 to 14. And if you fuck up with them right about then, it's going to keep going throughout their life. Like I talked about with my cousin earlier. 7 to 14. And that's the time that it gets real frustrating, I guess, with kids. That's when they're figuring out who they are and who you are and what they can do and what they can't do and things like that. And I said this to a friend of mine recently, and I think I posted it somewhere. I said, you know, your children are made out of the space that you leave in your life. That's where your children grow. Your children grow in the space that you leave. So you have to leave room for them. You know how if you've ever had a lizard, which I did at one point, and you put a lizard in a small tank, you can feed it and feed it and feed it, it's not going to grow. When you let it out the tank and give it room or put it in a larger tank, that's when it'll grow, according to its environment. We forget that people are like that in many, many ways. We grow according to our environment. If the environment that a kid is growing up in is toxic and they are being beaten and they have fear of their physical safety and they have no emotional regulation, and adults in their lives have no emotional regulation, and they are trying to make it through this thing that we call life in the society here in the United States, they're going to have a lot of problems. I saw another... If I mention social media one more time, I'm going to be mad at myself. But this woman was talking about she had been on these teaching websites and the amount of children that couldn't read, that couldn't write, and above all, couldn't comprehend. They didn't have large attention spans. They couldn't pay attention to what was going on. And she was like, I don't know what's going on, but it's terrifying watching these kids. Again, I don't know which filter she was looking through. In my mind, immediately I said, well, this is not the same world that you grew up in. This is a much faster paced world. Everything moves quicker. Of course, their attention spans are smaller. Social media is a flip through thing. We used to have to get up and turn the fucking TV. Sometimes that made the difference in whether you was watching the show or not. If you didn't feel like getting up, whatever was on was on. That was what was going to be on. If you didn't feel like getting up. These kids have a lot more choices. And the thing with choices a lot of times that we forget that the more choices you have, the more time it takes you to sort through. Which can look like paralysis because you have to sit still and look through all that stuff. You have to sit still and evaluate everything. So it looks like paralysis. And a lot of times it can be paralyzing for somebody to have to look through a lot of stuff. I know if you give me too many choices, I'm like, listen, we got to knock a lot of this off the table immediately. I'm not dealing with trying to figure out all this stuff. I just recently went through it, and I think this is something that for my senior citizens out there, this is for you. And for my disabled people. If you know the nightmare called Medicare, and the fact that you have to look and make sure that your healthcare plan that you have been using for the whole year is still available because they might just do away with it. And now you got to find another one. The fact that they do that to older people is terrifying. That means that you want the system to fail because you've made it, and you've made it only so that if you are technology friendly, can you get through it well? And the people who are utilizing it most often are the people who have the least amount of skills dealing with this type of technology. It's horrible to have somebody try and reevaluate what their health needs are going to be a year in advance, particularly if it's somebody who has pre-existing conditions, which is always a thing that you got to look at the health plan and make sure that there's no exclusion for pre-existing conditions if you have one. If you have something that you've been treated for the past 2 years, and all of a sudden this new health plan isn't going to treat you for it because it existed already, we have to do better. We have to do better. That little sidebar. I don't know where to begin when it comes to dealing with mothers who raise children and are not emotionally or mentally ready to encounter a new person in their lives. I don't know what to do about that. I do know, one, that there is no rush to have children. Two, if you do have children, there is no rush to have more. One can be enough. I'm sure if you give it a year or two, you'll find that one is enough. It's enough. You can go on vacation with one. You can still get a nice car with one. You can still do the fly shit. In fact, you can almost act like you ain't even got a kid sometimes. You do it the right way, it'll be that fly. Yeah. But we need to stop thinking that we need to have all these people if we're not in the position to make them good people. And keeping people busy, particularly as children, does not mean that they're going to be productive adults. Sometimes what will happen is the kids will go, you know what, I've been doing all of that and I just don't want to do a whole lot now. I was always doing something. I was always busy. I don't want to do it now. As an adult, you can't determine how somebody's going to receive your intention. You can't. This is a real life situation that happened. I don't know if I should even tell this. So I knew this woman, right? And the woman always, she was close to my family. And she always talked about the fact that she never had a new car. Like, she never bought a brand new car. She was like, I always go get me one off the lot. Da 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 da. Pay for it in cash and carry type of thing. So she said this all her life to her children, right? So when one of her kids had bought a new car, and at one point the car was repossessed, right? And this woman was going off about, well, I don't know why they would get a new car anyway if you can't afford it. Da, 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 da. And I looked at her and I said, maybe it's because you're hurt that your child's entire life you always talked about how you never had a new car. So she might have decided she was going to have one. And she looked at me and she said, I didn't mean it like that. But you don't get to determine how she took it. You don't get to determine how she took it. All her life, you have been pushing down her throat the fact that you have not had a new car. So she went and got her a new car. She fell on a quick hard time or whatever. It got repossessed. She went and got it back. Yada, yada, yada. Life goes on. But she has a new car. Her story is now not yours. And I think that's what we forget. We forget that our intention, if you had the best of intentions in disciplining your child, you do not get to say how that child is going to take that. They may resent you. They may hate you. They may take what you've done and find a victim to enact those same brutalities on. Yeah. I don't think we look enough at that. I think we really need to, it would behoove us, and I'm going to use it in the incorrect way, it would behoove us to, before you bring people here, find out your own history so that you won't repeat it with your children. I'm not talking about the history of your childhood. I'm talking about the history of your people. so that you are not here doing the slave master's bidding with your children, preparing them to be good slaves. Because, see, the other thing that can happen as a result of you disciplining your children in that manner is the violence and criminality that come afterward. And then there isn't a whole lot you can do. That's the other part, particularly when it's boys, not exclusively, but definitely, particularly. Young boys who have had violence and acted on them show a definite propensity towards violence of their own when they come of age. And they show more aggression toward other people by the age of 5. Yeah. There's some ideas that we have to do away with in our community, and this is one of them. If you're going to have children, find a way to communicate with your children. Make sure, first of all, before you have children, make sure you have a better relationship with yourself. Wherever you are now in your life, you need to be better than where you are right this very moment while you're watching this video. This is your starting point. Start here and get better, and then think about having children. You don't need to have a bunch of them. You don't need to bring a whole lot of them here. And the ones that you do bring here, make sure that they are having a good life. Make sure that that is their number one goal. That they are productive members of society, that they are well in their minds, in their bodies, and in their spirits. Make sure that they have a love of learning and a respect for not just society, but the earth and all the creatures that live here. We always operate like we live in a vacuum, like it's just us, like we are at this pinnacle, and which is why we face these troubles that we tend to face, because we don't use the real reason that we're here. We can vibrate higher than this. If you're gonna have, what is wrong? I don't understand how, at this point in our development, with all the tools that we have available to us, we do not sit down with children in the morning before they go to school and meditate with them, so that when they get to school, they're able to focus. Why is that not a family activity? Why are we not sitting down with our children to meditate in our community? That should be something out in the parks that we should see in city parks, citywide on the weekends when the weather is nice. Teaching children to emotionally regulate so that you don't have to, or even think that you need to put your hands on them. They understand what they're feeling. They understand how to get through it. They understand what it is they need to do in order to get through it. And it doesn't have to involve anybody else. It doesn't need to be taken out on another person. We need to cultivate that idea as opposed to give me grandbabies. That's some bullshit. We need to cultivate the idea of having good people, making good people. People who can think, how do I get my community a way of communicating just amongst us so that we can plan a better society for us? Because those are the minds that we need. It's not that we need a lot of minds. We don't need a lot of minds to do that. But we do need good ones. And that is where we can do better. That is where the potential for our strength lies. That is where we have potential to be really, really strong. And teaching these children now, so that, and I mentioned this in my last video, to emotionally regulate to the point where somebody calls you a nigger, you are not upset because you understand it has nothing to do with you. You're not a, whatever that word, you're not that. So they can't be talking to you. And if they are directing it towards you, it's because of some insufficiency in them. It has nothing to do with you. Imagine children who responded well in that manner. Who, when there was a call to action in the community, was able to regulate themselves from going to Walmart, from going to the stores that have thrown out DEI and things like that, who refuse to promote people of color, who keep them relegated to positions, starting positions and things like that. Yeah. So that as a community, we can go, you know what, we'll do without that. so that our community could, until they learn how to treat us, we always have to hit them in the pockets. That's the only way that shit changes. But we can't emotionally regulate ourselves enough to stay away from their falling prices. We can't do without it, whatever it is that we had to get. And this is not a castigation, because I do understand that Walmart, because they rob people, because they don't pay their employees enough, because they don't provide health care for the majority of their workforce, they're able to offer you rock bottom prices. And you can go there, you can clean the fuck up. Yeah, you can. But understand why you're able to do that. It comes at a cost to the entire community. The young girl behind the counter can't get health care for her kids, and almost her entire check is going toward child care just so she can stand here. That's why she has an attitude. And then she's going to go home to that kid with that attitude. And the cycle continues. We have the opportunity to do something different. We have the responsibility to do something different. It is necessary now. There is no later. There is no let's. It's necessary now. It's real simple. You have to learn how to do it. There's enough education out here. It's all free too. YouTube University. A lot of universities are now giving away free classes. Universities like Harvard and Princeton have classes online that you can take for free. Make your life better before you decide to bring more people into it. Your life sucks and you want to bring more people here to add to the suck. You live, and people, and this is one thing I've heard people say, well, sometimes accidents happen. Absolutely, accidents do happen. Live your life in a way so that accidents like pregnancy don't happen. Because there's a way to live like that. You ain't got to take every shot of baby batter. There's other places it can go. Just don't get it in your eye. I'm telling you, for real, that shit burn. But this is where we begin to do better. This is where we have to do better. This is where it's our responsibility to do better. It's our time to do better. So, if you have made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you, first of all. Second, you a trooper. So if you have any questions or you want to talk further about this comment, please make sure you drop a comment in the comments below, or you can email me at imrealdevious@gmail.com. Any topics that you think we need to discuss, let me know. You can email me. And also check out my other series. It is Brick City Recovery Stories. I only put one episode up, but I do have more coming. So please check that out. It's also on here in the special playlist BCRS. Brick City Recovery Stories, BCRS. So look for that, and look for the first one with my man Chris S. He did an amazing job. So check out the video, shout him out, give him some love, stuff like that. And I will see you next time right here. I am DVS, the Brick City Monk.